if you're expecting designers to learn the language of product, to learn the language of business and engineering, then you got to basically come halfway, which means that founders probably need to learn the language of design. I feel like designers land up, working in their little sort of, isolated.
Like just doing their job or just the task that is there.
Yeah, don't think about his career. just do great work and things will just happen.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Behind the Screen Season 2. I'm super excited to introduce you to Sunit Singh. Sunit Singh has worn every hat in product and design world, from co-founding a fintech startup to joining Krutrim to shape India's own AI. He's also a venture partner at Z47 and a design advisor to early stage startups. Sunit's thinking is all about blending clarity, speed, and storytelling. Whether it's scaling teams, simplifying products, or helping founders to design with intent. So, with that, welcome to Behind the Screen Season 2, and thanks for being part of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me this day. Looking forward to the conversation.
I'm super excited.
Yeah,
and the very
likewise.
first question that I have for you
Yeah.
is one that I've been quite curious about.
Okay.
So, designers in small and mid-sized companies
Yeah.
usually complain that a lot of founders are changing strategies and rejecting work. How can designers better empathize with their founders' decisions?
Rishi, that's actually a very good question. See, if we were to accept the fact that design is iterative, I think we should also accept that product and business strategy is equally iterative. It does take a lot of trial and error to actually arrive at what the market needs.
Yeah.
Having said that, I feel that I've actually come across two types of founders. One where you are a first time founder, you've stumbled upon an exciting idea that you want to build, and the second type of founders are experienced founders. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily second time founders. They're just basically people who have been operating in a space for a long enough time, and they want to build something which is within their space, do something better. Obviously, I think there's more clarity in the latter part, but I think designers need to understand this. And I think what happens is I feel like designers over-index on empathy when it comes to their users, but they lose complete empathy when it comes to working with their peers, right? So whether it's founders, whether it's design, product people, whether it's engineers, they I think become a little defensive, where it's always the sort of narrative is like, oh, my team doesn't get design, my founder doesn't get design, things like that. So my advice to young designers has always been that, hey, you need to firstly, get a full sense of context, like why certain decisions are basically being taken. Secondly, you got to be close to the context. So you need to make sure that you are basically part of the decision making process. It's not necessarily possible all the time. And the third one is you have to come from a place of genuine curiosity of knowing and understanding why certain decisions are being made. I think that's like, I feel like designers land up working in their little sort of isolated.
Like just doing their job or just the task that is there.
Yeah, and then they are treated such that, okay, like when all the decisions are made, you go to the designer. So, and of course that's where I think the friction lies.
Yeah.
So I think designers have to put in a little bit of effort to kind of be part of the process, be close to the decision making, when it's happening. I think that'll actually help a lot in them, buying into why we are doing this versus just basically taking instructions and like executing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said, right? And I feel like to a certain extent, designers need to come out of that shell that they are in and, come out of the world that they're there. Because founders give that space and opportunity for designers to explore just beyond what they're doing.
Yeah.
But like I've been designing for 13 years,
Yeah.
and I was one of those people one day sitting at the table and looking at my founder, and trying to
Yeah.
communicate, like figure out what is
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
So which leads to my next question is that how do you think, while designers need to work on really communicating well and not being super defensive about their work,
Yeah.
how do you think founders should sort of change their communication towards designers?
Yeah.
Because this is also a problem that we see,
Yeah.
right? That founders don't know how to tell the designer what to do, and it's
Yeah.
difficult for them because they have a business thought process.
Yes.
So how do you
Yes.
think they can go about it?
So see, I'll tell you, I feel like feedback starts much earlier. I think you are essentially, I think you have the right to give feedback if you were involved, from the beginning. And when I say involved, means you were directly communicating with designers, right? I think at an early stage, this is not possible later, but in an early stage, I think founders can definitely involve designers early in the process, right? In terms of their decision making, where designers can be part of product discussions rather than leaving the product, leaving a room for loss in translation, right? So I think when you're in an early stage, um, designers need to feel obviously more invested. Number one, so that's where it starts. And secondly, I feel if you're expecting designers to learn the language of product, you're expecting designers to learn the language of business and engineering, then you got to basically come halfway, which means that founders probably need to learn the language of design, right? I think it makes a big difference, and this is like I feel like a shared language makes all the difference in communication, because today I think the founder operates at a very very high level. I think they can basically make an effort to sort of operate at a sort of like more deeper level with with designers, basically, at least at that stage. And at a later stage, I think that's probably the job of the product leaders or product managers, where there's clear translation and all of that. So yeah, I think and the second thing is during reviews, right? When we are basically reviewing design, I think it's constantly asking why certain decisions were made, rather than prematurely giving feedback. I think it's important that designers get there's a lot of effort that goes into certain things, and maybe sometimes they might be bad choices. Fair enough, but I think you need to know why those choices were made. I think that builds a little bit of trust. I think that's the most important thing.
I love that. That's perfect. That I think while designers are asked to ask questions
Yeah.
when we get briefs,
Yeah.
I think it's really cool if founders can ask us questions on why do you think you've made this decision.
Absolutely.
And that'll help the designer open up also a lot more on
Yeah.
trying to explain what they've done.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. So that thank you for that. That's perfect.
No, it actually always works. I've seen this in action and it makes a big difference. I see
Yeah.
that there's a much better, transparent, founder designer relationship when this happens. So, yeah, I can vouch for it.
Nice. All right. So, talking about founders working a little bit more on their communication skills, at least with designers, you've seen dozens of startups. What's one design mistake that you have that you've seen founders keep repeating again and again?
Yeah, I think the one mistake that I've seen is that many times everyone in the company thinks that, everything is a design problem. Like
Yeah.
actually, sometimes it is not a design problem. It's a positioning problem.
Yeah.
It could be a copy problem. It could be a mismatch of what you've built versus who you're building it for. There's a mismatch in terms of your customer segment. And unfortunately, design won't be able to solve that.
Mm.
So I think like just thinking that I'll keep iterating design and basically the problem will get solved is not necessarily true all the time. I've seen this happen quite often that everything is like, I think we need to change this onboarding screen. People are not getting it. That person is not getting it because that person is not meant to use this product.
Yeah.
So that happens all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, like, and do you also think like sometimes, sometimes founders demand a lot out of designers in terms of like the look and the feel and everything that is absolutely perfect. Sometimes pixel perfection is required.
Yeah.
But then when it comes down to tech, things
Yeah.
start to fall a little bit apart.
Hmm.
So there, do you feel like, uh, founders could sort of also push tech teams to
Yeah.
also be more innovative as much as they push their design team to constantly service their users?
No, I think like I don't know if you've heard of the bike shed syndrome. Basically, it's essentially a law of triviality where basically whenever there's a complex, and I'm not basically saying that founders necessarily do this, but I think there's a general tendency, like I mean, and this could apply to even product people and engineers. I mean, a lot of times what happens is designers complain that I mean, you hear this a lot, right? Like everyone thinks that they're a designer, right?
Yeah.
So I think I guess the very nature of design being subjective, and you know, and the other thing that there's a tendency that it feels very trivial. There is like lots of discussion that happens around that, and yeah, you should basically look up bike shed syndrome. It's an interesting concept where in an organization people spend more time on things which are simple to understand versus things which are more complicated to sort of wrap their head around. So there's always lesser conversation around complex things and more conversation around simple things because everyone can participate. Everyone has a like this thing, I guess, like opinion.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds very interesting,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, so and let me give you an example of this bike shed syndrome. So this is a fictional story, but there was a org-wide, I think, leadership meeting in a nuclear power plant company, and the first thing on the agenda was basically that they wanted to put up a new nuclear plant, and someone had come in with a proposal with technical drawings and the project plan and stuff like that, and that went around the room, and within 5 minutes everyone had okayed it. And then that was it. And then post that there was one person who had another agenda, for that meeting, and the agenda was that he came with this problem that a lot of people in the campus take cycles to work, and we don't have a shed, so they wanted he was proposing that we have a covered bike shed so that the cycles are basically covered during rains and heavy sun and stuff like that, and that proposal was put forward, um, and the entire committee started engaging and having opinions about what color the shed needs to be and what should be the design and things like that. So I think that's basically that happens. I think like as designers we land up seeing this a lot, where a lot of people want to engage in design discussions. So yeah, that's basically shed syndrome for you.
The simpler the concept, the more opinions that will come
Yeah,
your way.
absolutely, 100%.
Amazing. Um, this is a little bit taking a little different twist from
Yeah.
the conversation that we went towards. To simply put it, okay,
Yeah.
what do you think founders really expect from designers?
I think, see, one is that, we must realize one thing that, you know, building a product is a team sport. Yeah. So you have engineers that are contributing, there are product managers that are contributing, there's marketing, there's design, and there's design, right? Um, I think like founders simply expect outcomes, right?
Yeah.
And design is basically a function that fits into the whole product development cycle, right? Process. Now, I think are we a little self-centered when it comes to basically our work? Probably yes. I mean, we feel like the world revolves around us,
Yeah.
but the truth is basically like we are essentially like there for a purpose. And yeah, from a founder, it's simply put, it is basically like in fact, actually, I would say that even if you look at companies, there are different types of companies. You have companies that will essentially need a sales and marketing engine to succeed. So they need to have a great distribution, etc. There are companies that probably need to be, sort of top of the game in terms of engineering. And there are some companies that need design to be like, especially when you're building something which, you don't have much of a differentiator than design experience. All of that becomes basically a big differentiator. So in some companies, perhaps design takes center stage, and in some companies, you're there to sort of like fill a function, make sure that you're meeting global benchmarks. Your end users are happy. They get your product. They're able to use the product, and that's about it. I think we've got to just accept that.
Hard one to accept. So, Sunit, this leads me to my next question. You talk a lot about moving fast without losing clarity. How do you actually do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. I think like where do we want to go, and what do we need to do today to get there? I think that's clearly, I would say, in a nutshell, I would define as clarity in the context of building products and stuff like that, right?
Right.
Designers have obviously this unique have this unique capability to show teams, or help them visualize, what the product will look, feel, and how it will function, and how people will end up using. So only designers have that capability, right? So I think like that's something to be leveraged when it comes to moving fast, having more clarity, which means that basically, I tell all my designers that whenever we are showing design, whenever we're talking about basically or showing what things will feel like, what the flow will be like, how will users use this product, I've always stressed on the fact that they need to come as close as possible to what an end user, how they will experience it, which means it's end to end, which means that how will they discover the product, how will they basically, what will be their first user experience, and then how will they execute whatever they need to do or get done with whatever they need to do, right? So I've always stressed that they need to come. So like a lot of designers land up opening up a Figma and then showing like hundreds of artboards, and that's just like, it doesn't help in clarity. It's just, it's a way of saying that I've done so much work, and now you figure, right? So
You
like
make the
design reviews,
decision.
the design reviews like goes into like, okay, people are moving left, right, center on one artboard, which has, I mean, sorry, one like Figma file, hundreds of artboards. I mean, that's not going to help in clarity. So I think that's first. Like, if you want decisions, if you want people to, and speed comes with decisions, right? Fast decisions, quick decisions, things are working, not working, all of those things. And if you are vague about it, and you're not able to basically like get people to visualize basically what the product experience is going to be, you're not going to get decisions. Those decisions are going to basically just going to get delayed. So that is number one, and that is with the purpose of making decisions. Second, I've always ensured that when we do design reviews, when we do design reviews, product reviews, I mean, it's all blurry right now, but everyone is in the room. I will not do design reviews with designers alone. I want to make sure that product people are in the room, engineering leads are in the room, everyone is in the room. Again, that has everything to do with the founders in the room. That has everything to do with quick decision making, because I've seen this happen where a bunch of designers come together, or I mean, I've done design reviews where I'm sitting with designers, giving them some design feedback. They go make the changes. Then they go to the product guys, show them. Then it's like, oh, this is not possible. That's not possible. We have this constraint. This is not in this roadmap. This is not in. I mean, this is not in this release. This will come later. It's a waste of time. So get everyone in the room and take decisions on the spot. So I think, like, yeah, again, so just to sort of summarize, one is get to the real thing soon, as fast as possible. And third is get everyone in the room to get to that place as soon as possible. I think that's basically, and yeah, it's clarity, speed, that's how you solve it basically. I mean, that's how I've done it in the past, and I've seen that it works always.
Yeah, that's very interesting because if you
Yeah.
want something fast, I think to do it together
Yeah.
is actually where decision making will happen faster or better.
Yeah.
Whereas in silos, when we're working,
Yeah.
we don't realize that, if even if we are decisive, we
Yeah.
don't realize to what extent it's going to match the rest of the team's thought process.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing. I think that's something I think all of us should do. So, Sunit, can you tell me two interesting insights that you have gathered while working for an AI company?
See, I think like before I was I've been dabbling with AI for quite some time now, and this is the first time I'm actually building something in AI. I think one thing that I took for granted actually is and the experience that we the way we experience AI today, it's so simplistic, right? The interface that basically that we interact with is so simplistic. You would never imagine how actually complex it is, like in the back end, right? It's only when I started building this I realized that AI is a completely full stack product, or rather, like, technology. One, you have there are a lot of interconnected, interdependent things at play here, whether it's obviously the front end, back end, the model orchestration that you need to do, and it goes all the way till the infrastructure layer. It goes all the way till the data center layer. And it's actually quite fascinating that unlike all other technology that we've seen till now, this is highly non-deterministic, which means every query is unique. There is absolutely no opportunity to cache, and any performance gain that one wants to have, in terms of speed, in terms of quality, requires a shit ton of money in terms of investment.
Yeah.
So I think that's we are basically today we are I think like the way we experience electricity, where we never think about what goes behind the scenes for these lights to turn on. AI is the same thing. I mean, it's become so it's so simple that we forget to realize basically the amount of complexity that lies behind. So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest learning, and I'm obviously trying to. And I think from a product builder perspective, I think it's critical for one to understand all the layers, to see where you can optimize. The other thing I basically also learned is that it's also very sensitive, right? To, like, earlier, basically when you were building technology, it was everything was very logical, which meant that if there was a bug in the system, or there was basically you wanted your sort of like product to behave in certain way, you could go make some code changes and it will start behaving in the way you wanted. AI is not like that. It has a mind of its own, and it's extremely sensitive. So it's a very incremental. You have to do a lot of incremental improvements to actually start really seeing the gains of the quality of the output. So I think these are some of the things that I'm learning as I'm building it.
Oh, that's really interesting,
Yeah.
and like, you mentioned something about unpredictability,
Yeah.
and, on the subject of unpredictability,
Yeah.
it's extremely unpredictable to know what a human will use AI for.
Yeah.
So how do you actually design for such products?
Yeah. See, there's a there is a term. It's basically short for evaluations, and in the AI world, it's called evals. So essentially, the way we sort of like run tests to ensure that the model is behaving or responding in a certain way, or other the way we wanted to like respond. We have to actually run evals, which essentially requires you to feed the AI model thousands of different kinds of queries, uh, and then they are judged by another LLM to see if so. Obviously, you essentially create a judge LLM and give that judge LLM a certain set of parameters in terms of understanding. You could give it parameters like, is the response comprehensive? Is the response actionable? And you could have, different kinds of parameters that you can set depending on the kind of query. So you'll obviously have to have a lot of different kinds of queries that you test out. So you could have, you could have a how-to kind of queries. A lot of people use AI to basically figure out how do I do this or how do I do that. That is one time. There could be queries which are purely information seeking, or they could be like current affairs, or it could be like writing reports. So, and every type of query can have different parameters, and you create a judge LLM that actually reads the response and then scores it. And then essentially, like, if we see that certain type of queries are not performing very well, then we can go in and basically fix those. Like I said, but it's very tricky, highly sensitive. Like if you, like, let's say you want to move from saying, hey, you realize that your, your LLM or your model is basically not comprehensive enough. If you try to make it comprehensive, it becomes too comprehensive. So there's like, a lot of like fine tuning you have to do. So yeah, I mean it's a very different thing. It's new to me, so I'm learning a lot.
Yeah. Does
Yeah,
it tend to take a mind of its own?
yeah, it is definitely.
Nice. That's so very curious about that one. But all right. On to our next question, and
Yeah,
this is specifically for how designers can handle something like this.
yeah,
AI software versus traditional SaaS.
yeah,
What's the difference for designers? Like, what's different for designers?
yeah. So see, I think one is that some of these concepts are going to converge, right? I feel that AI will be pretty omnipresent in all the products that we basically use and will use in the future. So I see SaaS as basically a category of product where you have multiple users. So usually it's for work, right? So you have multiple users, different roles, and then you have and those users have either frequent tasks or frequent information requirements from that tool, and then they have basically one of sort of requirements, right? Now the current I mean, I think this is probably the limitation of tech or whatever, or just imagination also, right? I think that these things are very much possible, but AI has helped us unlock our imagination in terms of what is possible. But I see that SaaS tools will essentially, or rather, AI will play a big role in terms of improving the personalization for these tools, which means that every user will probably see their own version of the product, right? And anything that's one off, those are basically a prompt away, right? So yeah, I think that's basically the way I think these things are going to evolve. And designers, if you have to basically say, how should designers be looking at it? I think it's to start thinking about how we can leverage. One is understanding how people are using their products, and then basically seeing how we can leverage AI to make it better. So that's, I think, yeah.
Sounds like a Black Mirror episode. It's actually um, great to know that there's a lot to explore for us as designers also, and
Yeah.
that, the redundancy, that the point of redundancy that we've also reached, especially the leaders that are there, of designing similar things again and again, is like a great opportunity for us to be challenged to think about CX a lot more when
Yeah.
we're designing for AI products.
Yeah.
So, all right, got that. So I want to do some real talk here.
Sure, sure.
How are you, as a leader, ensuring that you won't get replaced by AI in the next 5 years?
Okay. I think for one, I'm building a product, an AI product that hopefully will be something that the world hasn't seen before. So that's obviously like number one. Number two, see, I like I'm a lifelong learner, I would say. So I'm always learning. I want to make as many mistakes as possible. I love experimenting with new technology, and I want to work with as many different kinds of people, I guess, right? So I can gain experience, and I guess, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, stick to the basics, I guess. Yeah.
You're starting to sound a lot like AI. But like, let me make some mistakes and be a forever learner, which is
Okay.
which is very interesting, because I mean that's exactly how AI would also need to learn and function, is by learning through us what we are asking from
Absolutely.
it, and then evolving
Yeah.
eventually. So, all right. So now shifting the topic to leadership.
Yeah.
All right. What's a widely accepted leadership advice that you believe is complete nonsense?
Okay. Uh, yeah, I think like one, I would say that people believe that to be a good leader, you have to be the best. Leadership comes with experience. I don't believe that actually. Like I feel, you know, leadership is all about, you know, a, it's a trait actually more than anything else. So it's about someone who can get a bunch of people aligned on a certain common vision, and then steer them in that direction. Basically, that's what essentially leadership is. And I feel you don't need to be the best. We've seen so many cases like in sport where the best players have essentially given up their captainship, because they want to focus on the sport, and they've passed it on to people who are more capable as leaders. So I think that's probably I would say that you don't need to be the best.
Yeah, to get the pressure off yourself to always be the best person in the room.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Right. What's a design failure that still stings you even today?
So we were back in Cleartrip. Um, we had built this product called Weekend Getaways, and all of us believe that it's going to be like a game changer. And Weekend Getaways is like everyone talks about a I want to or everyone has basically at some point thought about where should I sort of spend the weekend and stuff like that. So we basically built this product called Weekend Getaways, and I don't think it's a design failure, but essentially it didn't take off. And we poured a lot of our heart and soul into basically building a very aspirational product, and made it really easy for people to discover weekend getaways based on their lifestyle requirements, or basically their the distance from where they live and all of that, right? Like, so it was basically perfect as a product, but it didn't take off. And I think like it was essentially the problem was not design or product, it was actually supply. We just did not have the right kind of properties that would do. So yeah, I mean, I would say that like that is not, again, not a design like problem, but basically something that I wish I'd taken off. Maybe those were things which are ahead of their time, whatever.
How much time did you guys spend on building that product?
Yeah, I think few months.
Few
Yeah,
months.
yeah.
And like, is it later on that you realize that the properties aren't like, that you aren't getting the kind of properties the way you want to propose it to the audience?
Well, I think like we did not see too many conversions,
Oh.
and that's when we realized that basically, maybe this is not the kind of properties people are looking for. So yeah, our conversions were not great. Yeah.
All right. So, how long would you be waiting for conversions to work in order to know whether product would like should succeed or not? Like, what if something like this takes a few more months and maybe it would have shot up? Because the concept is great, the idea is great. It seemed like all the team members were thinking this would work,
Yeah.
and people love their weekends and their
Yeah.
vacations.
Yeah.
So, how would you like, at what point did your team feel that, okay, you know what, it doesn't make sense to pursue this further?
Yeah.
Like one point would be dropping, like conversions dropping.
Yeah.
But then did the team think of like maybe recovering in any way or waiting a little longer to see if that would work?
No, I think we did like wait enough. We tried a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Whatever was in our control, I would say, right? Like whether it was basically spending a little bit on marketing, like experimenting, like things like in terms of like also fine tuning the design. I think this is where basically as I learned that not everything is a design problem, right? Like
Yeah.
we did one or two iterations of the product. We're like, oh, maybe like like the search isn't great, or maybe like the filters aren't great. Maybe like we need to make the pictures looks better, or the the way we present our prices better. Like, so it was not a design problem. So we tried. I think like whatever was in our control at that time. Obviously, supply is a getting good supply is basically a more of a long term sort of investment that one needs to make. And probably at that time we didn't have the resources to basically invest in that.
So sometimes you can say that, sometimes products just don't stick with customers,
Yeah.
and that it's okay to let go at the
Yeah.
right time rather than drag it on for a longer amount of
Absolutely,
time.
absolutely. Especially if it takes energy to, if it takes energy and resources to maintain it. Like if we're not seeing any uptick, then I think it doesn't make sense.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
So, Sunit, I have a question from behind the screens of behind the screens. You've led design and product teams at different companies, regardless of the industry. You've led teams at Cleartrip. You are leading a team at Krutrim, which is AI. You had your own fintech startup, and you advised to many different SaaS companies across different domains. How are you able to manage so many different industries as a leader, which is so many different context switches? How are you able to do that?
Okay. Uh, Quite honestly, I don't know. But yeah, it just happens. Things turn on and turn off, I guess. But I think like see, as a designer, I feel there's always like one common element to whatever you're building is that you have a human on the other side that is basically trying to get shit done, right? I think that's basically what it is. And if you basically just look at it from that perspective, that here's somebody who wants to get his work done, like what does it take to basically do that, right? So I think that's the common thread. And I find this to be a huge, in fact, like being sort of dabbling between multiple domains and industries. I find it to be extremely, it has a huge leverage actually, from the perspective that there is a lot of cross pollination you can do. You can think like you can think how a consumer person would think, like a designer doing consumer in SaaS, and you can think basically how you can use SaaS concepts in consumer, right? So there is a lot of that learning that you can sort of like, and it's just I think in my mind is I'm just connecting dots, and that's what basically makes it easier to solve certain problems, right? Like there are complex problems, I'm always trying to apply something I've learned somewhere else into this problem. And, I guess it helps in building a better mental model, or being able to, I guess, like also grasp things faster, right? Because now you're constantly basically updating your mental model. You have like, a large, and now I'll speak in AI. Yeah, basically, like, yeah, there's essentially, yeah, that's what it is, man. It's just basically lots of tokens, I guess.
All right, that's Sunit for you, who's now leading product at AI. But I completely get your point. I think I just like to end this, and that was great insight. I just like to end this by saying sometimes the best insights about your industry can actually come from outside your industry. Yeah, I fully relate to you. Dishri, over to you.
All right, Sunit. So we spoke about so many different things, right?
Yeah.
We spoke about AI and how designers can get better, and like having that seat at the table somewhere subtly under the lines. But this segment is more about how can designers be better at what they do.
Yeah.
So my first question to you in this case would be: you mentor the next wave of leaders.
Yeah.
What piece of counterintuitive career advice you often give that surprises people?
Yeah. Yeah. I think in terms of like career, like a lot of designers basically, ask me about, how they should think about their career and things like that. And I've basically always maintained one thing, saying that don't think about your career. Just do great work and things will just happen. So yeah, like just be in the now. That's it. So that's I would say that's been sort of like consistent feedback to everybody. Just do what is required now. Do your best work now, and things will basically happen automatically. Yeah.
Very true. That falls into place. I think
Yeah.
the whole stress of thinking about your future and what your
Yeah.
year will look like
Yeah.
and where are you heading becomes so difficult to actually realize that
Yeah.
whether it's actually going to happen that way or
Yeah.
not, that we don't
Yeah.
pay attention to what we're solving today.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. So in 2025,
Yes.
okay, which is now,
Yeah.
being now,
Yeah.
when does a designer stand out in your eyes?
See, I think like I've always maintained one thing, right? Like if you're speaking from the perspective of hiring and stuff like that, right? Always like looked at it this way that there are, I think, three aspects of things that designers need to have. One is the art, which is essentially your design sense and all of that stuff, right? So typography, all the visual stuff falls into that. Then there is the craft. Now the craft is basically, can you bring it to life? And how does it work? How does it function? What does it feel like? Can you take, because I feel like these are two different things. Someone who's basically a great visual designer is not necessarily going to be the person who can actually bring it to life, right? They might only be restricted by basically thinking in a very static form. And then you have the science of it, which is basically, being experimental, trying out stuff. Are you curious? Are you asking questions? All of that, right? So, like, that is the lab layer of it, right? Where basically, you don't shy away from doing your research. You don't shy away from talking to customers, all of that. So I think AI, not AI, like I said, AI is just a tool from the perspective of for a designer, like it's just a tool. So yeah, I mean, yesterday it was Figma, today it's AI, or it's whatever. That's not going to change. So these three things remain, and I would like a better way to answer it. It's not that I don't. I would never hire specialists. Um, but if I had one position to hire, and that's it, like I would hire a person who has all the three traits skills. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how it is. If you have the budgets, you have specialist skills required. then yes, why not? Like, specialists are great,
Yeah.
but I would say that if I like, I'm usually in a situation where I've done a startup and all that, so it's always like one designer boss, like, okay, so I need this person.
Yeah. I mean, you prefer someone close to being a unicorn rather an expert or a specific, having expertise in a certain domain.
Yeah.
Like more like a generalist. I also see that like more
Yeah.
of a generalist
Yeah.
culture is coming back.
Yeah.
We used to be that, then it
Yeah.
became slightly specialist, and
Yeah.
now we're again going towards
Yeah.
the more generalist mindset. But I think that's because I think as leaders, we want one person to have that perspective
Yes.
to cohesively
Yes.
build a product.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
experts somewhere are great at what they do, but then
Yeah.
the rest of it, the founders have to fill
Yeah.
to create the
Yeah.
perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like obviously like you can't expect them to be 100% in all three departments.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that they should be 100% in one department,
Yeah.
right? The others are things that are manageable. I mean, you have to have the inclination to learn those things, those skills, or if push comes to shove, you're able to do a decent job. But yeah, I think definitely, I feel like especially in an early stage setup, you need generalists. So totally
Yeah.
agree with that.
Awesome. All right. So, last question of this segment. With AI in the picture,
Yeah.
what's one skill designers should be actively unlearning to stay relevant?
Yeah, perhaps being deeply rooted into a certain philosophy of things, or how things are done, is probably something that you might have to unlearn then, in that sense, right? So you can't be too rigid. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. That's it. That ends all of the questions. You have been fabulous in this entire episode
Thank you.
that has been there. I
Thank
think
you.
the audience will be super excited to see what you have answered. And thank you so much for coming in and being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right,
Yeah.
awesome.